Hey there, hi there, ho there. It's a Tuesday evening weather for Weather Geeks time here as a lot of people headed back to work and school on this day after Labor Day. The weather, certainly different today. Started damp, ended damp, and in between it was halfway decent. Now we have a pretty nice evening unfolding. Should be a nice sunset shortly after I record Weather Geeks this evening. Wanted to touch on this. I posted about this on social media this morning, and I talked about it on 21 News at 6. Last evening, you may have noticed just before sunset, there was kind of the sky seemed kind of orange. And then the moon appeared to be kind of orange or red. The culprit here, thanks to Aaron for sending this picture to me on Instagram and on Facebook as well. The culprit, actually, wildfire smoke, which originated way out over the Pacific Northwest and moved into the eastern U.S. last evening. And on today's visible satellite picture, you can still see evidence of that smoke pushing into the eastern U.S. It's kind of this haze that you see, kind of this milkiness in through here. That's the wildfire smoke, and some of this was even pushed up into our region today. It was harder to notice today because of the clouds. But last evening, that is what led to the kind of colorful sky right around sunset and the red-orange hue to the moon last night. Another interesting fact about the wildfire smoke: studies have shown that the presence of wildfire smoke in the atmosphere when there are thunderstorms occurring increases the amount of lightning that can occur in those storms. There's more particulates in the air. The more things kind of flying around in a thunderstorm causes more friction, more static electricity, and that can lead to more lightning, particularly lightning that has a positive voltage. And lightning that has a positive voltage tends to be stronger lightning, up to 1 billion volts. It tends to travel farther distances, and it, of course, because it is stronger, tends to produce louder thunder. And boy, was that quite a lightning and thunder show we had during the few-hour period starting around 10:30, 11 o'clock last night, and taking us up through about 1 to 2 in the morning. So, real interesting stuff there. And while I certainly can't say how much different our thunderstorms may have been last night, if not for that amount of smoke in the air, I think it's plausible that it did in fact lead to an increase in the lightning with our storms last night. Well, speaking of the storms last night, the Weather Service in Cleveland went out and did a storm survey today out across parts of north central Ohio. This is just west of Mansfield, and they determined that, yes, indeed, we did have a tornado last evening in parts of Crawford County. I don't have the EF scale on here, but I do believe they determined eventually that it was an EF2 tornado that was on the ground for quite a while. This is close to Route 30 west of Mansfield, so a tornado confirmed out there. We had nothing like that around here today, but we did have some showers that pushed in late this afternoon. They got out of the way by about 6 o'clock or so. And as I said, it turns out to be a pretty decent evening. Temperature-wise today, we had a high of 73 this afternoon. Our forecast was 71, so that was within 2 degrees. And our accuracy streak, this is the longest one we've had this year. We're up to 19 days in a row getting the high temperature right within 2 degrees, putting our 2017 accuracy at 73%. So we like those long streaks. I could just stare at this all day. This is amazing imagery from GOES 16. They have the 30-second imagery centered over Irma right now. So in other words, we get a new image every 30 seconds. It makes for an unbelievable animation. And this is about as perfect looking as a hurricane gets. It is perfectly symmetrical. The eye is almost perfectly round. You can see the almost gravity waves coming off the eye. The outflow at the top of the storm is perfect. It just doesn't get much more impressive than this. And, you know, as meteorologists, we struggle. We marvel over this stuff and we say, wow, how awesome is this? But at the same time, we have to remember that this is no doubt going to kill some people and cause tremendous amounts of damage in parts of the Caribbean and perhaps then into the U.S. as well. So we can marvel at the awesomeness of nature, but also have to keep in mind that this is an incredibly dangerous hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 185 miles per hour. The pressure as of the 5 o'clock advisory down to 926. Millibars will get a fresh advisory at 8 and again at 11 this evening. There have not been many hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin stronger than Irma is right now. Only a handful, really, and it's been over a decade since we've had one similar to this in the Atlantic Basin. As far as the track goes, here's the latest guidance from the National Hurricane Center. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind here, and we kind of really preach this a lot when we talk about hurricanes and the track, is not to focus on the center line. Let's see if I can get rid of my telestration. Sometimes my telestration does not want to disappear. Oh well, maybe I'll do it over here. Don't want to focus on the center line. Pay attention to the whole cone, because by Saturday and Sunday, this storm could be here or it could be over here. Not necessarily right in the middle of the cone, and there are huge implications. If this takes a more right turn before it approaches Florida and goes right over the Bahamas, that would spare a lot of the Florida peninsula from the worst of the weather. If it goes far enough south, it'll be a tremendously bad storm for Cuba, but it would tend to rip apart Irma to some extent as it goes over the mountains of Cuba. So Irma would weaken some if it were to take the more southern route. If it goes right through the center of the cone, that's almost the worst case scenario for Florida, because if it goes exactly like this, the right side of the storm would be the worst side of the storm, and that would be bad news for Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, places like that, and even up through Central Florida, up to Disney World and Orlando. That would be a really, really bad storm for them. So a lot of things we don't know as we talk about the end game here in Florida. We know for sure this is going to be a horrendous storm for parts of the Caribbean, including parts of Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba probably as well, the Bahamas. But the end game in the U.S., and we're talking mostly about Florida, a lot of questions still out there. And as far as its eventual impacts, once it makes landfall around or near Florida and then comes north, what happens then? Those are things we just don't know. Its eventual impacts on our weather are unknown as well. If we were to get some clouds and rain from Irma, it would be 8-9 days down the road. So things we just don't know at this point. All right, looking ahead, tomorrow's big picture looks like this. Cool day. Our average high tomorrow, 76, but we'll only do 67 tomorrow afternoon. And of course, days are getting shorter and shorter. We're down to 12 hours and 52 minutes of daylight coming up on the 6th day of September. Our weather over the next few days will be dominated by this trough of low pressure, which is going to kind of meander through the Great Lakes. And as long as this trough is overhead, it's going to be cool, and we have to allow for the possibility of the occasional shower. A little lake enhancement can get involved, lake effect, lake enhancement, and that can lead to more frequent showers the farther north you are. That'll be the case tomorrow, again Thursday, probably again Friday as well. This trough also is a big factor in the eventual track of Irma. It looks like Irma is going to miss its ride here with this trough. If this trough were to be slower and dig down a little bit farther, it would probably pick up Irma and create a more easterly track and be more of a problem perhaps for the Carolina beaches. But it looks like the trough is going to lift out in time that Irma misses its ride, and Irma will kind of do its own thing, and that's why the forecast is kind of uncertain. For us here, the trough lifts out, and then a ridge pops in for the weekend, and I think the weekend looks fantastic. Still cool, but sunnier and with no showers. So Futurecast looks like this tomorrow. Again, I don't think there'll be much on the radar. A spotty shower, especially in the afternoon. Same idea Thursday, not much, maybe a shower or two. Best chance the farther north towards the lake you are. That's where the higher odds will be. And then on Friday, one more pretty potent little disturbance likely to come through, producing a good chance for some showers, perhaps mostly in the morning Friday. Hopefully we'll get these out of the way in time for high school football. That's the caboose, though. That's the end of the wave train of little disturbances. I think just in time for the weekend, the weather is going to improve. Again, it's not exactly a warm weekend. We'll sneak up to about 70 by the end of the weekend, but it is going to be nice and sunny for most of the weekend. A good weekend to take care of some outdoor yard work. Of course, for most of us, it's still a little too early to rake leaves unless you have, some maples that have already started to shed their leaves. But nonetheless, whatever you want to do outdoors this weekend, weather looks pretty good. We'll have more on the weekend, more on Irma, more on everything in future editions of Weather for Weather Geeks. Thanks for tuning in this evening, and I'll see you tonight on 21 News at 11 o'clock.